I'm Lynn Airhorn. I'm 66 years old, and a new chapter of my life has just begun. I want to document it. If you know me previously as a podcaster, um, I might look familiar as Cool Gray, but I'm Lynn for these purposes. I'm going to speak very openly, transparently, and honestly. It feels urgent to me that I document from this point forward. Let me back up and tell you what's going on. About a week ago, I had a visit with my neurologist. He wasn't my neurologist until about a week ago, but I sought him out because I was experiencing a parasomnia, which is parasomnia encompasses any sleep disorder. But in particular, what was happening with me is that I had begun about 3 years ago doing some things in my sleep that at first were amusing and then became, I guess, more curious. I wasn't really worried about it, but it was happening frequently enough and over a long enough period of time that I thought, at least let me go try to talk to somebody who specializes in this area and maybe understand it a little bit better. And what was happening was this. I will probably share some audio examples at some point in the future, but in my sleep, I would scream like in abject terror, as though my very life were on the line, in a dead sleep. And unless my husband was awakened and then awakened me, I would have no memory of this. But I became aware because it did happen a couple of times that I was either talking in my sleep or what my husband would call running in my sleep or flailing my arms or vocalizing. So I downloaded an app to try to track some of that. And on the very first night that I recorded my sleep activity, there was this blood curdling scream in the middle of the night that somehow didn't wake my husband or me. I have no memory of it, no memory of what I might have been dreaming at the time, but it was really unsettling to hear myself doing that with absolutely no memory of what could have possibly been so terrifying. So it went on from there. Sometimes there were funny comments that I would make. Sometimes my husband would be awakened because I was defending myself against someone that wasn't him, but he had to grab my wrist to keep me from smacking him. And typically he would wake me up and reassure me. And when that happened, I would be aware of what I was dreaming at the moment that he woke me. If it didn't wake either of us and it was just recorded by the app, I would have no memory at all. If I didn't wake up out of it, I wouldn't remember it. So I went to the neurologist. Hey, what's going on with this? And it was really just more intellectual curiosity, because up until that point, what I'd been reading was that parasomnias were fairly common. There wasn't much understood about them, and there wasn't much that could be done about them. So I just wanted to ask some questions, and that's what I was expecting to come away with. What I was not expecting to come away with was to learn that the particular parasomnia that I was experiencing, he suspects, is known as REM sleep behavior disorder. It's a very specific parasomnia, and it is very highly associated with a certain area of the brain that, when not functioning properly, can give way to a group. I know I'm not being very articulate, a group of neurodegenerative illnesses. And at the top of that list are three. One is Parkinson's disease. One is dementia with Lewy body or Lewy body dementia, which you may remember was the diagnosis that Robin Williams had received shortly before his passing. And the third is something called multi-system atrophy, which I don't yet know very much about. So that was sort of mentioned in passing. Oh, by the way, your condition will more than likely escalate. So here are some things you might want to do to keep yourself and your partner safe going forward. And you might want to go do some research on these neurodegenerative illnesses. And I'm going to send you for a sleep study to confirm my suspicion that this is indeed REM sleep behavior disorder. It took a while to process what had been said to me, and it was presented in such an offhand way that it really wasn't until the next day that my emotions caught up with my thinking mind about the implications of this. But what I did on that afternoon, in addition to talking to my husband and a couple of other family members, is of course I started doing my deep dive. And with every website that I visited and every article that I read, I found another symptom or risk factor that I recognized in myself. And realized that what is not happening is that I have some risk factors that at some point in the distant future may develop into one of these illnesses. But more than likely, this collection of symptoms, and I will talk more about those other symptoms at some point, is more than likely an indicator that I already have one of these illnesses, and that these are the very early symptoms that sometimes can take decades to develop into something more serious or something detectable and diagnosable. And recent research is now focusing on this early detection and these early symptoms before I develop any of the more serious or noteworthy symptoms like tremors or like dementia or hallucinations or cognitive issues. Well, it put me in a, it put, I'm sorry for the hesitations. I'm still processing. It put me in a position where I started to wonder what was worse, losing bodily functions, like the use of my limbs, or losing my mind, which turned out to be the more terrifying thing. Kind of like my mind. It's colorful and a little bit different from your average bear, but I would love to hang on to it for as long as possible. So what that boils down to is I am not the kind of person that's going to sit around and wait for things to get worse. I am not the kind of person that's going to stick my head in the sand. And I started collecting information. What can be done? What's the state of research right now? What can I expect in terms of access to diagnostics? What will my insurance company cover? What are some other ways that I could gain access to some of these either treatments or clinical studies or diagnostics, just the whole thing? And this is the first step on that journey, documenting. I'm in a position to do that because I've been a content creator for better part of a decade now. So I'm comfortable doing this, and I don't need anybody's help in order to do that. So here's day one. I don't know what I'm going to do with this video. I don't know if it'll become a podcast. I don't know if it'll be, short videos, long videos. I don't know if it's going to turn into a full-blown podcast. I don't know if it's the beginning of some kind of documentary. I don't know. There are a lot of thoughts in my head, but this is the beginning. I want to help others. I want to be very aggressive about helping myself. I want to learn and then educate. I want to find my community, and I want to do whatever it is that I can do with my circumstances and my talents and abilities to understand these diseases better, do something about early intervention or advancing research. And focusing on that seems to me to be the only thing that's going to make sense for what to do with my time. It's a funny thing my husband and I have been saying to each other for the last several years now. We lost some of the generation before us not long ago, and our hair's gray and some body aches are showing up and various things are happening that have caused us to sit together over coffee in the morning and just say, let's live the crap out of this day because we have no idea if tomorrow's coming. We just aren't guaranteed a thing. And that's kind of been a mantra for the last several years. I am feeling that on steroids at this point. There is no time to waste. I don't know tomorrow if there'll be a symptom. I don't know if that's not going to happen for 10 years. I don't know if it's never going to happen. But I do know that wasting time makes no sense to me right now. So I'm going for a sleep study next week. I'm actually working with the hospital as well as a friend of mine who specializes in video to try to have some of that documented as well. I want everything documented. It's like a compulsion almost, I guess. I'm not going to be afraid to say anything. I'm going to use the words that make sense. This is no longer about polish. It's no longer about being a professional podcaster. It's no longer about looking good, feeling good, or choosing the perfect words. This is raw, and it's going to stay raw. This is so stream of consciousness and so off the top of my head. And that's the way I want it right now. I might not have any of these illnesses. I don't have a formal diagnosis. I don't even have a formal diagnosis for REM sleep behavior disorder yet. But that doesn't change the fact that I know that I have it, regardless of what that sleep study shows. I don't know if I'm going to have an episode that night or not. I don't know what those electrodes are going to show, but I know what's going on inside my body, and I've watched enough videos and done enough research to know that I fit this profile pretty much without question. And the neurologist confirmed that as well. He said I very clearly described REM sleep behavior disorder, which only happens because a specific area of your brain is not functioning properly. And that is highly connected to these illnesses. And then there's the other symptoms. I will talk about those another time. I just don't have it today. And, you know, I'm going to press pause right now because I don't know where we go from here. I just know that I wanted to document my thoughts today. Today is the 4th of December, 2024. And it's the first recording. Thank you for being with me. Really.